Hi, hello, and welcome to PJs and Pages with Danielle. I'm Danielle, and today I want to talk about what I call my comfort reads. These are my security blanket reads. These are the reads that I gravitate towards. They're always rereads, and they're the ones that I gravitate towards when I'm in a reading slump or I'm just down in the dumps and I need a pick-me-up. These are the ones that always bring me back up, and I wanted to share those with you today in case you had some that you wanted to share with me, and also in case you needed some to try out. Editing Danielle here. I just wanted to preface this video by saying I have tried to videotape this twice already, and I'm just gonna have to decide that there's just no way it's gonna be perfect. I have a 2-year-old, and either I'm having to film at night and it's just not working out, or he's coming to interrupt. So please excuse the background noise, and I hope you enjoy the video. So without further ado, let's spend the day in our PJs and talk about some of our favorite books. So the first book that I want to mention is actually one that I reread all the time, and I want to say this with a caveat. I know that the author is a problematic author, but it's one of those books that I've just had to agree to disagree with the author and separate her work from her personality and the things that she says, because honestly the works do not reflect what she says and the persona that she puts off. And those books are the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. Harry Potter has been in my life since I was like, 7 or 8 years old. I can't remember. I think they came out when I was in 3rd grade. And I remember reading the first one in 3rd grade and being like, I don't get it. But then I reread it when I was in like 5th grade, I think. And for whatever reason, it clicked. I mean, I read the first book in a day, the second and third book in like one day together. I could not put them down. And every time that a new book would come out, I would reread the whole series over and over again. So this is one that I reread all the time. For those who don't know, it is about a young boy named Harry Potter who was orphaned as a baby and is sent to live with his aunt and uncle, who are absolutely horrific people. One day he gets a letter in the post inviting him to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Then he finds out that he is in fact a wizard. So the stories, each one of the books follows a year of his life at Hogwarts and the adventures and misadventures that him and his 2 best friends, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, get up to while they are at school. There's also an underlying plot that builds throughout the rest of the series about the man who actually murdered Harry's parents, and he's this evil wizard who eventually Harry will have to confront and defeat once and for all. So they are a little bit darker, but for whatever reason, they are a cozy read. I can't explain why. Lots of people feel this way. I'm not the only one. And they are definitely a book that I reread whenever I'm in a reading slump. I gravitate towards Harry Potter. I've read it in 2 different languages, English and Spanish. I am Hispanic, so I read books in Spanish sometimes. And I've read it, the first one I've read at least 10 or 11 times that I can think of off the top of my head. It might be more. But all the other ones I've read equally as many times. So definitely a series that I gravitate towards. The next book that I want to talk about is another series, but really it's just the first book that I reread regularly. I will reread the rest of the series. I've reread the rest of the series probably 2 or 3 times at this point, but the first book I've read like 8 times at least. It is my comfort read, and that is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. This is a children's classic written in the 1800s. She was born in 1874, so late 1800s. And it is about a red-headed, precocious orphan named Anne. Clearly I have a thing for orphan children, I don't know. But she is sent to live with Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert, who are this older brother and sister. They're not a couple, but they live together. They never got married. They kind of just hang out together in their house for the rest of their lives. So they take in Anne of Green Gables. They take in Anne, and you follow her adventures as she grows up at Green Gables in Prince Edward Island in Canada. And it is just very picturesque, very sweet, wholesome. Anne's story, she just like monologues throughout the whole thing because she's very precocious and she just talks and talks and talks and talks, and she reminds me a lot of myself when I was her age. So yeah, Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. I pick this up when I'm in a slump, when I need a pick-me-up, when I'm just feeling down. Anne of Green Gables brings me out of it for sure. So Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. Another thing that happens when I'm in a reading slump is that I tend to gravitate towards specific genres. And the genre that I tend to gravitate towards, because usually I'm in a slump, I'm not necessarily depressed, but I'm not feeling like, woo, super excited with life. And something that brings me out of that let's call it depression, but it's not really depression. Something that brings me out of that depression is reading romance novels, and specifically rom-coms. So I've got 2 novels that I really reread quite frequently, and the first one is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. The Hating Game is a rivals to lovers office romance about Lucy Hutton and, what's his name again? Oh, I've been reading way too many. Josh. So she is a Smurf-loving, small, tiny girl, so similar to who I am, and Joshua Templeman is kind of like this businessy, serious type, and they both work at this publishing firm that was merged. So their bosses hate each other. They're the assistants, and there is a position opening, and they are both vying for that same position to hopefully be top dog and be the one who is working over the other one, because neither one of them wants to work for the other one. Clearly they hate each other. But do they really? Because let's be real, I think there's even in the story it talks about the office having a bet about them. So, and it's a rom-com, let's be real. There's a happily ever after at the end of it. But yes, it's very sweet. It's funny. There's a little tiny bit of spice in it, nothing too serious. And I have read significantly better office rom-coms since I read this one, but for whatever reason, this is the one that I gravitate towards when I'm in a reading slump. I will pick it up and read it in a day. It's not that long. I think this copy is 363 pages. It's not a long book. It's super short, and I have the Kindle copy, which I have annotated quite a bit. And yeah, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, a great rom-com for getting you out of a reading slump. Nothing too serious, but it is cute and sweet and funny. The other romance that I tend to pick up when I'm in a reading slump is Beach Read by Emily Henry, which is another rivals to lovers rom-com. I clearly have a type, orphans and rivals to lovers. So Beach Read is about Gus and January, and they are polar opposites. She writes romance, he writes like lit fic, and they met in college, have kind of like a rivalry going. Both of them thinks they're the better writer, and through some twist of fate, they end up both staying at these houses right next door to each other on a lake in Michigan. And they're both in a writing slump, or not a writing slump, what's it called? Writer's block. They're both experiencing writer's block, and they have to get their books out. And so they decide to challenge each other to write each other's genre. And while they're doing that, they're gonna actually help the other person understand how they do their research. So to show them that their writing really is much more serious than, well, mostly January, showing Gus how much more serious her writing is than he takes it. And in the process of this research that they're doing and the writing and they're collaborating, they end up falling in love. And it is a really beautiful story. It does deal with deeper topics than The Hating Game does. There's some underlying plot lines that are much more serious, but it is, for the most part, a fluffy, light romance, and I really enjoy this one. As you can see, I have annotated it, and just, you know, FYI for those who are starting annotating, don't buy the opaque tabbies. You can't see through them, and then when you go to reread your book, like, you have to remove them and put them back. It's such a pain. Go for the translucent ones every time. So, Beach Read by by Emily Henry.
What does the camera say?
The camera doesn't say anything. What do you need, baby?
It's a battery.
It is a battery, baby. Do you want to sit with Mommy while she does her video?
Yes.
Okay, come sit here. Mommy was just about to tell people about the Aare Affair. This is a book.
What's this?
It's the book called The Aare Affair, and this is by Jasper Fforde. It is an alternate history where they take literature very seriously.
When Mommy reads.
Mommy does read it often. hold on a second.
Banana.
Sorry about that. So The Aare by Jasper Fforde. It is an alternative history of Great Britain set in 1985 where time travel is a thing. The dodo bird is still in existence and literature is taken very seriously. It's a world where they can actually jump into books, and there is this criminal who actually kills off a character in a novel. I can't remember which classic book it is, but he kills off this minor character, and it creates this huge, like, oh, sorry, we lost power. It's storming outside right now while I try to film this. So anyway, so the evil villain, he kills a minor character, and it creates kind of this snowball effect. And our protagonist, Thursday Next, is a special operative of the Literary Detectives Agency, and she has been tasked with catching him before he kills his next character, which is none other than our heroine from Bronte's famous novel, Jane Eyre. So we spent a lot of time in Jane Eyre, which is actually one of my favorite classics. And I've reread this, I don't even know how many times. It's actually a series as well. And I've read the other books in the series, not quite as often as this one. This one I've read a lot more. But it's funny, it's witty, and it's, okay, pass over. Thank you. Nope, don't touch, thank you. Don't touch the camera. It's very funny, and it does not ever fail to bring a smile to my face. It's like a cozy mystery, and those always just, I'm not really a cozy mystery person, but this one does it for me. So, The Aare by Jasper Fforde. I have a visitor today. He's also in his PJs all day long. So the last book that I want to talk about as one of my comfort reads is one that I have reread probably the most. I've probably read it at least 15 times, and it's gonna be a surprising one because I don't think most people would consider it a comfort read because of the genre, and that is none other than The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. And this is a thriller slash horror about a young girl. I think she's 9 years old, maybe she's 11. She's really young though. And she goes on a hike with her brother and her mother. They've just moved to Maine or Connecticut, one of those states in the upper east side of the US. And they're on this hike, and her brother and her mother start arguing, and she has to go to the bathroom. Their mother and brother start arguing, and she has to go to the bathroom. So she steps off of the trail, she goes to the bathroom, and they kind of don't realize that she stepped off, and they leave her behind, and she gets lost in the woods. And all she's got is whatever's in her backpack and a Walkman where she's been listening to the baseball game. She is obsessed with Tom Gordon, and in order to keep her from, being absolutely terrified at night, she starts listening to the baseball game or the playbacks or whatever. And she's, running low on water. She's running low on food. She's been out there for I think she's out there for a week or two, something like that, in the middle of the woods. And the entire time, something or someone is stalking her. It is definitely a darker read. As you can see, I've annotated it. And this time I used the translucent tabs. Definitely a much better option.
That's cool.
But for whatever reason, it doesn't bring me joy. This is not a book that brings you joy. It is just a kind of like a fall cozy feel to it. It's a little sinister, but I love it. And for whatever reason, when I'm in a reading slump, this will do it for me. And sometimes in the fall, it's like the only thing I can get on my brain. And I'm like, well, I guess I gotta read The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon again. So until I do that, I can't read anything else. It just, it lives rent-free in my mind for sure. It's probably one of my Roman Empire books. It is definitely in the top 10 books that I've ever read. And I'm not necessarily sure because it's the best thing ever written, although it is a phenomenal... Okay. It is a phenomenal example of really good tension writing and just it's so good. Hold on, let me see. I have notes here. Psychological fear and just it's so good. It's just so good. If you have not read this book yet and you're scared of Stephen King, this is not like a horror like It or anything. I highly recommend starting here. And it's a short one, so I know he's like known for his ridiculously long novels. This one is 262 pages and it's a mass market paperback, so it's really short. Highly recommend The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King, and it is one of my comfort reads, even though it doesn't make sense as a comfort read. It is definitely my security blanket read. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on this video for my comfort reads, my security blanket reads, if you will. I'd love to know if you guys have something similar to this, if you've got a book that you gravitate towards when you're in a slump, or just one that you use as a pick-me-up whenever you need one. I'd love to know what those are. Please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.